we're good. We're good to go. Let's go ahead and get started. Let's just take a look. You've got your packets at your desk there. Mark forgot who he is. Pick that up. You are Mark Graham. Hey,
Hi, Phil. All right.
good, good. Let's go ahead and we ought to be able to do introductions pretty fast, considering I think Chip is on the way, I believe. But let's go ahead and get started. Today, just quickly, we've got our standing agenda items, but later on in our new agenda items, we're going to return to that issue of signing, particularly focused at Rio, which I believe is a big deal, and we have some great opportunities to get some thoughts congealed early and get them into the design builder at the beginning of the process rather than kind of coming in late. So, Stephen, go ahead and click us over to the next slide. Let's go ahead and do our introductions. Henry, how about we start with you?
Yeah, Henry Blackshank, consultant to Express Car Wash.
Brad Sheffield, Albemarle County Board of Supervisors.
John Unley, Better Living. John.
Chuck Lebo Commercial Properties.
Mark Graham, Albemarle County.
Morgan Butler, Southern Environmental Law Center.
So we have a small group, but whether there's all one or none here, we can still go. Here's the mayor.
Bucha has a pretty.
The mayor?
I was going to say he had a good excuse, but I guess he got wrapped up pretty quickly, huh?
Did you snip the ribbon, Mayor?
We did.
Very good, very good. There you go. Progress is a good thing. Technical team?
Nathan Umberger, Area Traffic Engineer for Culpeper Engineering.
Joel D'Annunzio, Charlottesville Residency Administrator.
Ron Lynch, Culpeper District Administrator.
Allison Constance, D member.
Debbie Messina, Phillips Chiquette Company.
Al Jones, Project Management Engineer.
Dave Covington, VDOT Charlottesville Residency.
Lou Hatter, 29 Solutions Communications Manager.
Stephen Davis, VDOT IT Department.
Linda Collop, VDOT IT Department, located here at
Linda's the apprentice to Stephen, and will be taking over managing our live streaming. So she'll have an important role. Thanks much, Linda.
This is our third IT person. Are we wearing these people out?
We're wearing them out. Well, we've got live streaming just going everywhere now. So VDOT can only cover so many bases. I understand the county might be doing some live streaming of their own here. Go ahead, Stephen. Speaking of live streaming, I noticed that last meeting we about doubled, or a little more than doubled, the number of viewers that were tuned in for the meeting, 66 as opposed to spending about the 30s. The 66 streamed 136 times, 31 minutes per stream. Go ahead. As far as the comments that have come in through the website, either by an email or on the provide input portion of the website, there were 11 new comments by email, 45 new postings on the provide input, probably by about 5 people, quite honestly, because there was a lot of discussion back and forth. Some more productive than others, but it's a good venue for people to use. There was one extended, probably better to say, debate about Rio between a couple of people. There was a discussion about where the projects came from and the role of Places 29. And all I want to mention there is that, while some of these projects were included in Places 29, we're not implementing Places 29. I mean, that's still a job that the county needs to do and consider, and it's great that most of these projects, if not all of them, were included in Places 29, but this is not a Places 29 committee. It's implementing the VDOT Route 29 Solutions Package. Somebody asked about some details of the proposals from the design builders. I think that was more about when certain documents might be available after contract award, and that was answered. Somebody had a question about the total square footage of the retaining walls through the underpass. It happens to be about 44,000 square feet. I found out from Dave, but remember, that's the length times the height. So one would talk about the speed of advancing the package, and all I can say there again is that this project and these projects and process have followed every single requirement of the project development process. Nothing is skipped. It's inappropriate to refer to these projects as fast-track. That means something entirely different in the world of transportation. The fact that they're not going slow or dragging out longer than they need to is something I would certainly acknowledge. One question, the traffic data at Rio. It's fine for people to have opinions about the traffic data at Rio, but the traffic is what the traffic is. And there again, just to mention that it does not come from Places 29. It comes from new traffic counts that were developed in the summer and fall of 2014, and the projections all come from the official regional transportation demand model that would be used for any official public modeling of transportation in the Charlottesville-Albemarle area. There was a request to share a blog post, and that came from Neil, and that blog post was shared. I think it had to do with the Architectural Review Board guidelines. There was one that invited the project team to the charrette, although as I understand that the charrette wasn't exactly open, I guess. I don't know. I wasn't there. One person doesn't believe the construction schedule for Rio. I do believe it, and we're sticking with the schedule that we had. One requested, Joel, this might be more for something for you to look at, speed limits and stop signs on Old Brook in Westmoreland. Is that something in your bag, or?
That would be something in my bag.
Okay, that's in the Joel D'Annunzio bag. Next page. One just generally supported the parallel roads. The issue of the pedestrian bridge at Rio has come up a couple of times. There was one suggestion from someone that actually the pedestrian bridge be located further south. We talked about pedestrian bridges during the first panel, and there's two basic issues there: cost and the need for additional right-of-way. As far as having pedestrian bridges at other places on the corridor, I think it's still important to address pedestrian crossings at Rio and Route 29 and to connect those sidewalks. One asked whether left turns will be permitted after the 103-day construction period. The answer is yes. All movements will be permitted after the 3 days. There was some discussion about opinions about the cost benefit of Rio, and then there was some continuing disagreement with Rio, pretty much the same ones that we've seen before. I would sum it all up by saying there was nothing new from any of these comments, either for or opposed to the project. I would like to see people start getting engaged on the signing issue, and may try to encourage that a little bit through some remarks on the website. Any questions about any of that?
I'm just curious about the one about the left turns at Rio and whether they are mean Rio specifically or the Rio interchange project, and thinking that there are going to be temporary left turn lanes at, down at Burt Bar and up there at Carter Myers.
Right.
And I think we've tried to be very clear about those are temporary.
Yes, those are temporary.
But trying to make sure the public understands.
I'll go back and look at that one specifically, Mark. That's a good idea. As I recall, it was specifically at 29 and Rio.
Okay.
But I'll go back and take a look. Yeah, just as a reminder, the temporary intersection at Berkmar and the temporary crossover at Myers Drive come out after the 103 days. That's a good point. Thanks, Mark. Okay. We wrapped up the last meeting with a question from Karen, I think it was, about whether or not you could give us just a general discussion on the signing guidelines, but I've got that later in the agenda on item 8, so you've got 5 agenda items you can study before we get there. Okay. Well, this is the open discussion period that helps us build the agenda for February 22nd meeting. Any? Henry?
Yeah, I have a question. It may actually come up later in our session today, which is, we know that the bid from Lane Corman is $117 million. Do we have a breakdown on all 3 parts of their bid?
The 3 projects? Not yet.
Will we have it sometime soon?
Yeah, I believe we'll have that. Let's say maybe February 22nd or maybe March. It might be more March. What do you think, David?
I think following CTV meeting on February 18th.
So we could possibly discuss that on the 22nd.
Why can't we have it sooner? Because I assume that they already told you what the breakdown is.
Because it's proprietary information until they're awarded a contract.
Okay, I don't know if I can follow the logic. I hear you.
Well, it may or may not be logical, but it's proprietary information until they're awarded a contract.
Okay.
That's the code of Virginia, Virginia Public Procurement Act.
Yeah. Well,
Hey, Chip.
okay.
On tangent on Henry's, when that information is released, is there a way to understand like, I assume there's some sort of overhead that is shared amongst all 3 projects? Because I can't imagine they're going to be able to slice it up perfectly.
It won't be sliced up perfectly. Remember, it's one bid for 3 projects.
Right.
VDOT has administrative overhead, and they will track it against those projects.
I guess overhead's not the right word. I would
Well,
say, you look
not a
at,
bad word.
in any business you have admin and operating.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a division of conglomerate of work versus the separate, steps of work. So I was just wondering.
It's not going to get any more specific than this. We'll have the bid, we'll take that bid and be able to say Berkmar, Rio, Route 29 widening. And those 3 numbers will equal the bid. Right, David?
Correct. I mean, there is not overhead necessarily, but there are cost items that are attributed to all 3 projects in general, and that has been allocated in a logical manner to each of the 3 projects.
Yeah, I mean, it is overhead in the business sense that's allocated among those 3 elements.
Now, you know the numbers. You can just not tell us.
I don't know the numbers because I get to know them when the public knows them.
I mean, somebody in VDOT knows the
So,
numbers.
Phil, just as an explanation of the reason why that occurs,
Yes.
until a contract is awarded, or there's reasonable expectation that it will be awarded, in case there is something that happens that would cause the project to be re-advertised, we don't want to have that information out there that would potentially influence future bids. So not that, there will be an issue or that we expect an issue, it's just common practice in this process for all projects.
It's exactly the same way every project is administered every time
Well,
at VDOT.
I understand, except I'm here to get myself educated for
Yeah.
VDOT. so maybe you can apply for a job.
Maybe.
Who knows? So essentially, what you're saying is you don't want to disclose the numbers, but you have the numbers, or somebody in VDOT has the breakdown.
Yes.
Okay.
And it will, we can provide that information after CTV.
Okay, I understand the process.
It's not that you don't want to, you legally are prohibited from
Right.
doing it.
Yeah, you're legally prohibited from doing it. I mean, that is the administrative code of Virginia does not permit the disclosure of that information until a contract is awarded, for any project.
Okay, I'm learning.
I have a question. Our local news is saying, excuse me, that they're going to start working on the adaptive signalization tonight, and they'll be finished tomorrow night. Now, that doesn't mean this thing's going to be operational Saturday, does it?
I think, Chuck, that's referring to some work right there at Fashion Square, that because it's going to have some blinking or some flashing signal work. Dave will cover that when we do our comprehensive project review here.
Today?
Today, yeah, we'll cover it here in a
But
minute.
I'm curious when that thing will be working and how soon it can be working.
Well, just remember that overall, Phase 1 will be in place by
July.
June, July of 2016, in advance, 2015, and that will allow VDOT to manage signals in real time through construction. Then after October 2017, the adaptive signal software will kind of be plugged in so the signals can start to learn the traffic flow of the post-construction period.
So this summer, we can start realizing some of the advantages of that. And that will begin where and end where?
It's 21 intersections.
Just to, more of an overview of Phase 1 versus Phase 2. Phase 1 is getting the infrastructure in place now. The communications, the cameras, all those things that during the construction phase of these projects, the Traffic Operations Center can make adjustments to signal timing as needed. So
Right.
there'll be some benefit there, but there will be no active
Right.
signal component until after 20, or in.
The benefit of Phase 1 is to help manage traffic during construction. It's not going to provide the long-term benefit of the adaptive signal system that will be in place post-October 2017.
But it sounds like we'll start seeing some benefits late this summer.
You'll see benefits related to construction and real-time management, not the adaptive signals, not the adaptive signals. Late this summer, VDOT will be able to, in real time, manually adjust traffic signal timing.
And they will be able to do that. Will they do it? They will
Yeah,
actually-
they will do it to help manage construction.
And they'll be
Yes.
able to do that from the office rather than have.
Right, they'll do it. Is that going to be in the Northwest Regional
That's right.
Office? They'll be in their regional traffic operations center.
Henry can apply for that job.
Okay.
Henry could apply for that.
The flight traffic controller.
We're going to find your job, yeah.
He'll be our on-the-ground man.
It's too fast-paced for me.
It's pretty interesting.
But yes. Anything else, Chuck?
That's it.
But we will get an update on where we are with that.
So what happens when someone hacks into the system?
It,
Come on, the anthem got hacked.
it will collect all of your information, which we will,
Yeah, North Korea. hacked
which
into
Henry
the-
will abscond with.
Not a reputation.
No, I don't.
Well,
It's not easy to get in the VDOT system if you're a VDOT employee. I can say that.
If you're really good at this, you can make sure that all the lights turn.
All the lights are green if you drive. John, I think you were saying something.
Two things. The widening of 29, the Berkmar extended, the GSI, are those all three separate line items for the Commonwealth Transportation Board?
Yeah, let me mention something about that because that question's come up. Every project in the 6-year improvement program, which I don't know how many thousand that is these days, But the 6-year program's got $13 billion worth of projects in it. Every project for every year of the 6 fiscal years is a line item identified by a unique project code number. So yes, every project's a line item. That means absolutely nothing in terms of how projects are delivered. Some projects are delivered with multiple UPCs, these unique project code numbers. Some are not. But yes, every project is identified as a line item in the 6-year program and has a programmed preliminary engineering number, a programmed right-of-way number, which includes utility and utilities relocation, and a programmed construction number.
So the grade separated interchange could be put on hold and the other projects proceed?
That will not happen. They are all proceeding or all 3 not.
Can you explain how?
Can I explain how?
Mhm.
Because the decision has been made that all 3 of these projects are going to be delivered as a package or not delivered.
But they're separate line items.
That doesn't mean anything. Yes, they are separate line items. Look, let's be real clear. Let's just be real clear. Brookmore Extended, Route 29 widening, and the Rio grade separated intersection are considered as one entity of projects that a contract has been advertised and bids have been received for, and they are all moving forward to all be delivered. Not in pieces, but together. Now, could the CTB decide to do something else? They could. I think that's highly unlikely. And it doesn't have anything to do with whether they're line items or not.
And the other thing that you sort of passed over, I think a little quickly, was referring to the GSI and the Places 29.
Mm-hmm.
The way that was structured in the Places 29 was that all parallel road networks would be constructed first. And any decision regarding the railroad intersection would be after those were performed.
That may be the case in Places 29.
And that there would be a small area of plan done before that was done.
Right.
John, I'm not sure I would characterize Places 29 as requiring that all parallel roads be in place prior to a grade separated interchange. I think it left things pretty flexible. He talked about looking at some of the parallel road network and seeing where it made sense to have it in place, parts of it in place prior, but he said all of the parallel road network would be in place prior to the interchange. I don't think that.
When the secretary impaneled the first panel, formed the first panel, that panel was not formed to implement Places 29. That was never a discussion, never a topic, never a directive, had zip to do with Places 29. When we went through the first panel, we had 4 concepts. A full expressway concept that would have extended an expressway from the city limits all the way to the Greene County line, that would have put all traffic in a separate expressway, all through traffic in a separate expressway. There was a 2 variations of expressway concepts. There were 2 variations of parallel road concepts. During those discussions, at those panel meetings, there was no discussion about implementing Places 29. When we got through that discussion, and that panel's job was the job of picking the projects, when we got through that discussion, we came out with a group of projects. And then we went back and said, well, there's really nothing new here. And we looked, and those projects were either already included in the 6-year improvement program. Some of them were already included in the TIP, the Transportation Improvement Program. Some of them were already included in the MPO's fiscally constrained long-range plan, and some, maybe all of them, were included in Places 2029. Beyond that, this is not a Places 29 exercise for VDOT at all. There's no requirement here to do any other steps that have not been followed to deliver these projects. Period. I mean, and I think we've talked before about Places 29 and should the county revisit it, and should you, I mean, that's really up to the county, but this isn't a Places 29 exercise.
I appreciate what you're saying, Phil, and I know there's a lot of public dialogue back and forth, which is always good.
Yeah, it's good.
On this, but this is why I asked for us to review the charge last December, is because we actually, as a group, have a fairly narrow focus here.
Absolutely.
And I just want to make sure, if we go out and start trying to fix the world, we're not going to be able to do what we've been charged with. At least my personal opinion.
The charge was to begin to address mobility in the corridor and congestion in the corridor. That was the charge that the Secretary came here and gave the panel, and we came up with, I can never remember if it's 8 or 9 things if you include the train, the extension of the train. We came up with 9 things, excuse me. 8 of them roadway related, 1 of them rail related, and of the 8 that were roadway related, 3 of them were Rio, Berkmar, and Route 29 widening. And because those 3 form one system, VDOT made a decision to package those into one design-build project. There is absolutely nothing extraordinary about that decision to move those forward in this manner. There's no missteps or something that wasn't done or overlooked. The recommendation was made to the Commonwealth Transportation Board that these were not a menu, but a package of projects. And the recommendation was that they be funded or not as a package of projects. They were funded as a package of projects, and that's how they're moving forward.
And at that time, as I recall, and I was trying to go through my notes because I was attending some of those meetings earlier last year as well, to recall all of that process as well with the first panel, because I have to say I came in late to that part of it, so it was one of the last meetings of the initial panel when y'all were determining which projects would be in the package. However, most all of, and again, maybe you covered this, but most all of the projects in the package were previously in another package because they've been approved, except for the interchange, and the bypass was in that, but then it had been removed. So I'm trying to understand now why it's all or nothing, whereas before it could be kind of moved around, and maybe I'm misinterpreting.
Well, I think there's a misconception that before has anything to do with now. And you're talking about 2 different processes.
That's what I'm understanding. Is it not the same process that was initially previously? Does VDOT not follow the same
VDOT did
process
follow the same process.
when these projects that are in the current package were approved prior to last year?
The projects that we're talking about now were not all approved prior to the first panel. That's a misconception or a misstatement. They absolutely were not. None of them were fully funded, and not all of them were in VDOT's 6-year program. The ones that were in 6-year program were the Best Buy ramp, but it was not fully funded. 29 widening was not fully funded. The adaptive signal projects were not fully funded. And I want to say there was one other, but it might have just been those three. Well, yeah, the Western Bypass, which came out. So those were in the 6-year improvement program, but not fully funded. The work of the first panel recommended to the CTB to fully fund the projects that were already in the 6-year improvement, those three that were already in the 6-year improvement program, and added the others.
I recall, I think Hillsdale was in the 6-year.
Hillsdale was in the 6-year improvement program. Hillsdale was in the 6-year improvement
I don't
program,
think the widening.
but not fully.
I don't think the widening.
The widening what? The widening of 29,
It was from the,
It was from the
Ashwoods.
a piece of it. A piece of it was in. A piece of it was in. That's right. That's right, Allison. A piece of the widening was in, and we extended it to Polo Grounds.
And none of those were approved as a package prior to what we have now, this package.
We've approved a package of 9 projects. One of them a rail. The others are moving forward as a package.
But prior to this current package, the projects that are in it were not part of any other previous package.
I frankly don't know. Not that I know
At
of.
least in the long-range transportation plan and all, there are
Yeah.
no packages.
Yeah.
They're all
Okay.
separate
Yeah.
I'm
projects.
just trying to understand
Yeah.
why, and this is a question that maybe a lot of people have, because this came up last night at the Board of Supervisors meeting, why this is now a package that it's all or nothing. So that's what I'm trying to understand that part. Is that the precedent on how it works, or is that just for this particular situation?
I would say it's probably more appropriate to say, for this situation, to move these projects forward. Best Buy is on its way, right? That's already been approved and is moving forward. The adaptive signal project is technically under construction and moving forward. The three that are in the design build project, Rio, Berkmar, and Route 29, are moving forward as one design build project with those 3 elements in it.
And those 3 are all or nothing?
Those three are, well, here's what,
Where we're getting this.
no, we're really not getting
Well, I'm
confused.
trying to understand.
Yeah, well, I wish I could believe that anybody was trying to understand, but let's make it clear.
I'm sorry, you said I'm not
Let's-
trying to understand?
I'm not sure, but let's get it right. There's a parallel road project.
I'm not
Okay.
coming in here to be insulted.
Yeah, I understand. The parallel road projects, do you want to try to understand?
I do.
The parallel road projects of Rio, 29, Rio and 29, Hillsdale and Berkmar, and Hillsdale, all come into Route 29, right, at Rio Road. Is there any confusion about that?
Well, yeah, on the Berkmar, people west, they'll take Berkmar and not go to the Rio 29 interchange.
Well, appreciate your opinion on that, John. Appreciate your opinion on it. But what's going to happen is this. Not everybody, but that's what's going to happen, okay? And from those 2 directions, in 2040, there's going to be about 31,500 cars pointing at Rio, pointing at 29. These existing intersection, particularly from the east and the west, are already causing problems here. In 2040,
Which is someone's opinion.
no, it's no one's opinion. That's no one's opinion. I mean, you know, some people are in this business, some people in others' businesses. That's no one's
Right.
opinion.
Some of us were invited to be here.
So about 31,000, okay? Of this 31,000, and maybe it's 31,500, I'm not remembering all the numbers
It doesn't matter. It's a rounding error.
It's from about this 31,000 in 2040 are going to mix with about 76,000 on Route 29. That's right. That's 29. Okay? What the GSI is going to do to make the parallel roads work is of this 76,000, about 41,000 just simply aren't interested in getting a hamburger at Hardee's. Or they're not interested, they don't have a flat tire. They are moving somewhere, maybe they're moving to Woodbrook, maybe they're going down to Fashion Square, we don't know. But they're going to do something else other than go through this intersection. So those 41,000 are going to be in the through lane. And that's going to leave about 35,000 on the local lanes that want to do local business, that do want to get a hamburger or go east or west on Ryan. So when we look at this same intersection with the grade separated intersection, I'm just going to draw it down here again. We'll have about 31,000 cars on Rio. That'll be east-west. This is on the local lanes. And this 35,000 will be on the local lanes through the intersection on Route 29. So instead of having this unbalanced situation with the parallel roads, without the GSI, we'll have a balanced situation on the local, on the intersection, just as it looks today, the same footprint today. It's not a monster. It's not anything obnoxious. Look just like it looks today with balanced traffic. And you'll have Hillsdale, Parkway, all feeding it. So that's the reason. It doesn't have to be a reason anyone agrees with, but that's the reason why those three projects, are recommended and were approved as a package because they work together. To do this. That's why when we've looked at these, it hasn't been, well, what's this going to do, and what's this going to do, and what's this going to do, but what is this going to do? From Berkmar through the intersection and Hillsdale.
So my simplistic question, I'm sorry.
Well, let her finish. Let Karen finish. Let Karen finish.
It was simply a funding question, not for a diagram.
Oh, a funding question.
Funding question. Because what was said at the Board of Supervisors last night, that the funding has to be for all or nothing. That was my question. I apologize. I was more clear on that.
If someone were to, okay, go ahead.
I'm listening, I can hear everything.
Oh, okay, I wasn't sure where you're going. The funding we were talking earlier, the funding is in single line items in a 6-year improvement program, but the funding is together because this is together. That's the intent. That's the reason it's together.
The answer is yes, that it's all or nothing.
My recommendation would strongly be that it's all or nothing. For those,
Not your recommendation, but
Not your
fact.
recommendation, but whose decision was
Fact.
it be?
I mean, could the Commonwealth Transportation Board
The
opt to not do the GSI?
The Commonwealth Transportation Board is a group of people that are free to vote on any item as they see fit.
I think that's the answer you want.
Phil, I don't know if it's appropriate or not, but could I come up and give you an alternative narrative to what the diagram you drew?
No.
No, okay.
But we could talk about it later.
Well, because there is a totally different narrative, and I call that the swastika diagram that you're drawing. It has to cross. And I say, look at the narrative, for example.
You can draw something else on it later. Okay.
Thank you. I
Very good.
appreciate it. But there's a totally different narrative that actually Ian Lockwood
Well,
presented.
yeah, I saw that. Ian Lockwood.
Makes a lot of sense.
No, it doesn't.
It's totally-
And let's say something about what Ian Lockwood did. I talked to 2 people who asked me if I'd seen the presentation, and I told them no. They both had it. They were both told not to share it with me. So that's always helpful.
Well,
That's always helpful. But I did review it. I did come by it. I reviewed it.
okay.
It has absolutely no influence or impact on anything that's been recommended or presented here.
I hear you. The only thing is, I'd like to tell you that whatever he talked about just reinforced my narrative that would be there, because I have used Berkmer, living in the western suburbs, to go to places like Lowe's. And if I still lived there, I would go all the way up to Don Holt Center.
What I saw.
Which takes me off
Yeah.
29, not puts me on 29.
Okay.
And the same thing goes for the eastern side. People living in those neighborhoods like Carsbrook and Northfield, if they want to go to Whole Foods, they use.
Yeah,
his.
I think,
So,
I think
that's
there's
one thing.
there's one key thing missing in that presentation. The presentation itself, or what I saw of it, what was shared to me once someone else made sure I saw it, was an interesting presentation of concepts for local roads or for urban areas, okay, or for urban areas. But what is missing there early on is a definition of arterial that fits what the Federal Highway Administration says is an arterial and what all 50 state DOTs say is an arterial. And the purpose of an arterial is to move large volumes of traffic efficiently from major areas one to another. In Virginia, US 29 is a urban principal arterial. It's a corridor of statewide significance. It's not a main street. It's not there to serve primarily access. It does because many entrances have been permitted on it over the years. No one is recommending that those entrances come out. No one is recommending that all the intersections come out, although that was one of the things that was studied in the first panel. So there's a balance here of a set of projects that balances the movements of traffic east and west, tries to recognize that local access is important, but begins to address mobility in the corridor, in the arterial corridor. There's some case studies. The only one I saw, I presume there was an A and a B. The only one shared with me was C of Winter Park, Florida. I'm very familiar with Winter Park, Florida. If you looked at that map that's in the study I saw and actually looked at it on the ground, what you don't see in the tool design group is just to the west, there's a major arterial, Interstate 4. Well, you know, that Interstate 4 is the arterial here, is Route 29.
I understand the arterial concept and
Okay.
the highway of national significance, all that. And
Okay.
I don't want to go too deep into that. I just want to go into the concept that the parallel roads will drain volume from 29, not create volume. Nobody will want to cross this thing, you know, unless there is a particular reason. But this idea that this what I call the swastika diagram, to me,
Yeah, please pick another.
Yeah, I know it's a.
Can you find another description?
It's a bad one.
You call it Chouquette's stupid idea or whatever.
No,
But let's don't use that term. Let's don't use that term out of respect for a lot of people.
It's a little bit of gallows humor here. But,
Well, that's not funny.
But the idea is that, you know, people in the western suburbs will use the parallel road on their side, and people in the eastern suburbs will use the parallel road on their side.
I'm sure some will.
It will drain volume off 29. It may only be 5% on one side and 5% on the other. Together, that is 10%. And then comes the other thing about, sorry, you want to? Oh, I thought you wanted to say something. And then comes the other question that we're going to have 70,000 cars there because the county is growing. And the county may be growing, but it doesn't mean that the volume on 29 will grow in proportion to the growth in the county. I think that's a fallacy, and we have argued this before, because we have seen this leveling off for the last 15 years, and we have seen it for a reason. Alternative shopping areas developing all over, so the county may develop more, and Greene County will benefit a lot, you know, their shopping areas from the northern suburbs in Almar County developing residentially. But there's nothing that tells us that all of a sudden we have leveled off for 50 years and then it's going to shoot up. You know?
Do you have any more comments?
No.
Okay. Mayor?
I think we have discussed this issue for 15 minutes. Does it to do with our agenda?
It has nothing to do with our agenda, and I'm ready to move on.
Okay.
Okay?
Move on.
Item 5. Since the last time, let's see, where were we last time? We were just after the price proposals. The price proposals were opened. A notice of intent was actually issued earlier, before January 26th. FHWA has completed their review. We'll be at the CTB in February for approval and a notice to proceed in March, on March the 4th, for the 3 design build projects. Any question about the schedule? Okay. Item 6. Dave, you want to, this is the part, Chuck, where we'll get an update on adaptive signal as well as the other projects.
Okay, starting with the Route 250 29 interchange project, we did have a pre-construction / partnering / scheduling meeting with the contractor on the 30th. I think last time we met, talked about that meeting a little bit. It was a very beneficial meeting. We talked about all the important things, you know, about why the deadline for the project is important, as was recommended by this panel, why good customer service is important. These are all things that the contractor knows already, but we've reinforced that. We also have signed a partnering charter with the contractor to agree to work together. So it was a very beneficial meeting. The just to bring everybody up to speed on the progress of construction or when that will start, March 4th is the latest date that the contractor can start construction by contract. So we will issue them a notice to proceed on February 16th, and they will get to work on or before March 4th. Adaptive signals is on schedule. This is all, when I say adaptive signals, this is all phase one of adaptive signal work. All the fiber has been installed from Hydraulic Road intersection to Fashion Square Drive, and some fiber has been installed north of that, but that work continues to the north of the Rio intersection. The borings for the signal replacement at Woodbrook and Route 29 will take place this week. That's geotechnical exploration. Also, cabinet change-out work will occur at Fashion Square Drive and Route 29 this week. And this is what you were talking about when you saw the news release on. What this is the cabinet that is there now cannot accommodate the controller that has to go in it for the phase two, the actual adaptive signals. So that whole cabinet is going to be replaced. It's going to be done after 10 p.m. this evening. That signal will go dark. Police will be on site to direct traffic tonight. It will take approximately 3 hours to get that work complete, and by the morning it will be open back up. The signal will be functioning just as it does now.
Karen, I'm told that they have called and advised your office of what's going on there. Okay.
Okay. Also, this week, controller changeout, which is the computer that controls the signal, not the whole cabinet. That'll be occurring from Hydraulic Road to Rio this week. It's already started. That will continue to occur. And usually what this means is it'll go to a flashing mode at night for a few minutes while they unplug one controller and plug in the other one. So that's a very quick little changeover, whereas the whole controller cabinet is a more extensive operation. But we only have one of those. For Hillsdale Drive, as I mentioned last time we met, the administrative agreement has been executed between VDOT and the city for right-of-way acquisition services for the post office property. VDOT this week received updated partial right-of-way plans, and VDOT has begun right-of-way work for the post office parcel, which includes title work and appraisal work. It is anticipated that will be completed in approximately 2 weeks. For the design-build projects, much of this we've already discussed today. We did issue notice of intent to award on Friday, January 23rd. The protest period, which the other teams had available to them, has expired. That was a 10-day period for them to file a protest. We did not receive any protest of the selection. CTB meeting is February 18th, where VDOT will present the project for award, recommendation for award to the Commonwealth Transportation Board. Notice to proceed scheduled for March 4th. So the procurement remains on schedule. We also are having an initial meeting with the design builder next Tuesday to talk over their approach to the project to make sure that they're getting started on the right path with design work, that they've already begun on their own accord and at their own risk. And the design builder will begin investigation, which primarily includes surveying here shortly, the supplemental surveying that they feel they need to do in addition to what VDOT has already done.
Have any contacts started being made with property owners? That was a question that I think Karen asked us to keep up on.
Yes, VDOT had, in coordination with the three offerers in this procurement process, had agreed to expedite the acquisition of what we're referring to as phase one right-of-way, which is only easements in the area of the Rio Grade Separated Intersection project for utility relocations. And to my knowledge, our right-of-way division has started contacting property owners, and I believe some offers have gone out.
Okay.
Does that include Brookmar?
No, only the Rio Grade Separated Intersection project.
Questions for Dave on the updates? Morgan?
Jump back to the 250-29 interchange. I have to look so much want to call it Best Buy ramp up. Officially Best Buy. When,
Lou will get mad at you.
do we have a sense yet when we can start to expect lane closures from that and for traffic to be impacted?
We haven't received their schedule yet, the contractor schedule. They'll be submitting that soon, which is, I think, probably by the next meeting, we'll be able to get into that a little bit. I do know that the beginning phases of that work is planned to be some of the retaining walls and sewer line relocations, which does not require lane closures. Probably what they will do is come in and put in barrier wall along the shoulder to separate the traffic from the contractor's workforce so that they can work during daytime hours, not impact traffic, and make substantial progress on that.
The reason I asked, Chip and I were talking after one of our recent meetings, and that being the first project where there's going to be significant work, I think it's really important that we get out in front on that one and get the communications with the public and with the businesses. And just, it's an opportunity for us to put our best foot forward. So just want to make sure we're on the ball on that one. I'm sure VDOT is, but I want to make sure that the panel is as well.
Yeah, and that was one of the most important things that we discussed at our meeting on the 30th was the importance of communications, this good customer service, and being able to be well out in front of any activities that would impact the traveling public or businesses or even residents, so that everybody knows what's coming well in advance, can plan their daily activities. Lou was there as our communications director for 29 Solutions to introduce himself so that the contractor knows who to coordinate with. Clearing up some of that ambiguity up front will really help our communications efforts throughout the entire project.
VDOT has a pretty extensive earned media plan for as these projects move into construction as well. And maybe we should include that on the agenda for our next meeting, just to give everybody here a better idea of what VDOT has an extensive plan and a healthy budget to really purchase some earned media, to keep paid media, to keep the public advised of what's going to be going on through construction between now through the October 2017, actually.
Has this been designed yet? We can see how it's going to work, or is that still coming forward? The design of the, I don't know if they're going to the right of the existing ramp or to the left of it.
Oh, it was, Chuck, it was fully designed before it was bid out.
Could we see that sometime?
Yeah, we reviewed that, and there's a link to it on the website. I can point you to that.
Okay.
I'll point you to that, and then if you have some questions,
I was curious how it
we
works.
certainly can.
I want to see where it starts.
Yeah, there's actually, I'll point you to 2 sheets on the website that are actually 2 sheets from the design itself is a lot more than we probably want to look at, but there are 2 key sheets that I'll point to. Yeah, I'll send you a link to it.
Thank you.
If I can, though it's in my schedule of activities and a little bit later, but since it's on that one, 2 things coming up. As I know the city staff is already working with talking to the businesses because we've exchanged information back and forth, but also on February 12th is a neighborhood meeting that's joint between the county and the city that will be held at the Meadows, which is predominantly for the neighborhood and residents, but certainly businesses are invited, and anybody else who wants to come. And these both are specific to the 29-250 round.
But it'd be very helpful if there was somebody who could approach these businesses between hydraulic and the 250 bypass.
Yes, sir, we have made contacts with the businesses along 29 to let them know. We'll be continuing to make additional contacts with them to make sure that they're aware when work is starting up.
To let them know what.
Yeah, I couldn't hear you.
Just repeat it.
Oh, I'm sorry. We have made contacts. I made contact with all those businesses back when we did the utility work in the median strip back in the fall. They are all part of our email distribution list, so they're receiving all the information about the projects. And I'm going to make another round of visits here before the contractor gets out to start work to make sure that they're aware that that work is going to be starting shortly.
I don't think I received anything, that's why I was wondering what it was.
That's a different
Oh, this is
area.
the.
Oh, okay.
It's down
Okay,
29,
make sure-
250.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't got that, okay.
Any other questions for Dave? Okay, let's go to Chip. Can you give us an update just on your?
Since our last meeting, which would have been on the 22nd, the Communications Committee has met. They met on February 9th. These are just some of the major activities that have been happening. We'll be meeting on February 9th. The Business Assistant Subcommittee will also meet on the 9th. We've invited Pete to attend with that. I think he's out of town, so we haven't heard back.
Yeah, he is out of
Able to
town.
attend
He
or
is.
not, but we've got him, we sent him a copy of the past agendas and minutes and stuff, so he
Okay.
can kind of get up
Okay.
to speed on that. Also, March 4th will be the presentation to the Board of Supervisors by the county staff that will be presenting a list of potential strategies for business assistance. So
Okay.
that'll be at their regular Board of Supervisors meeting. And I know that they're also working at, we'll get some input from Pete when he attends the subcommittee meeting on, how to get some business input to this list of strategies. The Board of Supervisors held a meeting at the county office building a couple months ago, and whether it be something similar to that, or something, with a smaller group of businesses, getting their input before it gets to the Board of Supervisors
Okay.
as well.
Chip, I'm like, Karen, you had, Karen.
I'm listening, I'm sorry, I'm multitasking horribly.
You had concerns that you hadn't seen that.
Right, I mean, that's exactly right. I did look at that, because I had asked about the link, and the link which you told me, which I went to, and the only thing that it takes you to is to the Albemarle County website, but it only has the executive summary that was presented in December by Lee.
I think there are two
Kaplan.
pieces there.
And then, an exhibit to that, which is just, again, a compilation of what was presented at the public meetings back in October. So I didn't see anything new happening.
That's
why I was
that's all
wondering.
that would be.
And that's,
Right.
so there is nothing
Nothing-
new.
nothing new.
Okay.
Is there any plans to try to vet that a little bit before it comes to the board? Because I'm sure that will be my question to Lee is, how many people in the business community have looked at it?
Right, and that's what I was just saying, and I know that she's working on, we aren't working on that directly, but she's working on vetting it and getting it to the business owners, and I don't know of what matter, so that it can be further refined before it's given to the Board of Supervisors.
All right.
So that's a month from today. I mean,
Yeah, that's not a lot of time.
Yeah.
But I'll reach out to Lee and all. So.
okay. Any questions for Chip? Mark, can you just give us a little rundown on the signing guidelines?
On the side, well, first, there is a handbook with the ARB design guidelines. But I think it might also be important to note some differences between VDOT signing and the Architectural Review Board signing. First off, one thing that confuses people sometimes is temporary signs, which the county has a set of standards for temporary signs. Those are not under the Architectural Review Board. Those are outside of that. Temporary signs do not require a certificate of appropriateness, which is what the ARB action is. It says it's there. The other thing to note is that VDOT's not bound by the Architectural Review Board. It has its own signing standards. And quite frankly, there's good reasons why VDOT standards need to be different than the county's. Color, for example, the county has a set of color palettes for its signs. VDOT has a set that follow the manual uniform traffic control devices, and that pretty well locks you guys into what colors of backgrounds and what colors of letters and size even, which doesn't necessarily apply. The county, with the architectural standards for the private businesses signs, is much more focused on the architectural appearance. Has a color palette for the background, for the lettering, The county focuses on the lighting of the signs, making sure they're backlit and they're downlit so that we're not seeing any reflection upward.
Dark skies.
The dark skies
Yeah,
concern is
sure.
always a concern for us. Another major concern is just the frame for the sign, or how the sign's held. VDOT, because many or most of your signs fall within clearance zones, have to be designed for breakaway, so that they have a very different structure, whereas ours are outside of the Architectural Review Board review signs are outside of those clearance zones. VDOT clearance zones, and are focused once again on the architectural appearance and the size of those, making sure it's consistent with the design guidelines for the corridor. So that's flying down it really quick. If people have other questions, I'll try to answer them, or if I don't have the answer, get the question.
Is the consideration, and I may have this wrong, but is the consideration of adjusting or relaxing certain guidelines part of what's being considered with the business assistance?
That's one of the, there's two parts of consideration for
Okay.
that. First, majorly, is temporary signs. There's a recognition that is part of this, especially of all the projects, but particularly with the Rio grade separating interchange, it's going to be necessary as part of utility relocation to remove some existing signs. And VDOT's working on that. We as the county are recognizing when that happens, we've got to make some adjustments for our temporary signs, both as far as the length of time they're allowed to remain in place, and then the size and how they're displayed. Because we've got a lot of concerns there as far as making sure, one, it's not impacting the visibility for the drivers trying to get in and out. So we've got good sight lines there, but also making sure that we're providing those opportunities for those businesses to be seen. If you've got a line of barrels and cones parked there and a construction equipment, it's going to make it obviously very difficult for that business to get visibility. So all that's getting looked at right now. No decisions have been made. No decisions are being made. What will happen in March when we go to the board, we'll be talking to the board about a process for going forward to make sure that we do get that input from the business community, well, the community at large, before we do any of those change. At the same time when we're doing that, we're going to go to the board and talk, does the board believe there's any interest at this point in time in looking at changing to the permanent sign standards? Those would be the signs that are affected by the Architectural Review Board. And this would be some of what we've heard from the businesses out there, whether there is a concern that by the nature of this interchange that there's going to need to be some other considerations for how signs are placed and the size of those signs. So we're just, at this point, once again, no decisions are made.
Okay.
I'm going to ask the board, do you want staff to start looking at that and working with people, or do you think it's something we need to put off a little bit? Frankly, staff is planning to recommend we need to focus on the temporary signs first.
Yeah.
That's something we need to get done quickly this year, so we have it in place for those businesses.
Okay. Questions for Mark?
Is the sign criteria for temporary signs online on the county's code, or is that looked at on a case-by-case basis?
No, it's in the county code, but one of the things we do encourage, because first thing I do when I start talking to people about sign code is I apologize to them that it's so complex.
I understand.
So if there's any questions on that, we do have great points of contact with that, people who do deal with this day in and day out. And the first thing I'll do is get you directed to one of those people. So if you hear of concerns, I would say right now, send the concerns to me, and I'll make sure they get lined up with the right people.
And Mark will hate this, but you have a resource back there, Neil, who is very immersed in the sign ordinance business of the county.
It was Neil's blog that we shared.
And I would
at
suggest,
his request.
You know, I think he offers an interesting perspective of how we might be able to make some changes. County staff definitely have a perspective, but from the outside looking in, I think that would be an interesting source. So I would encourage y'all to talk with him and have him suggest ideas to us.
Yeah, I'd say, first off, defense of staff, we were looking at the question long before Neil's blog. Neil just articulated very well.
Neil started it all.
Well, and staff's worked with Neil before, and we're going to work with him again. He's actually very good for us as a sounding board. We love using him as a resource to make sure we're not overlooking some perspective out there.
Yeah, well, is there anything else for, because this leads into something. Chuck?
I thought I heard somewhere that, would this be showing favoritism towards businesses on 29, so the stores on Pantops, they say, well, we want some relaxation for signage too while you're doing all this?
I would say from a supervisor standpoint, our code doesn't really address construction issues. And that's what I'm looking at this from is, this is not favoritism as much as the issue is at the Rio intersection at this point. But if we ever have any type of construction at Pantops, I would expect that we would treat them the same way. So when we kind of reapproach this ordinance, we really need to look at that more comprehensively, not just this. So that's where I wouldn't think it'd be favoritism, but that's where we need to shape it so that it's long lasting, not just for this issue.
Yeah, that's a great point, and something that staff is going to be taking to the board and asking for direction is just how big is this area that you would have in this construction zone? Those are all great.
How far north do you go after?
Yeah, that's great questions. I mean, is Hilton Heights in this construction zone? But seriously, that's one of the questions we're bringing to them. We're trying to come up with some ideas and alternatives for them to consider. But once again, we're not trying to get the board to make a final decision there at that point. We're trying to say, here's some things we'd like to take out and discuss. Does this look reasonable for a discussion?
I'm not sure whether a question or just statement, but it may be worth on the permanent side, because I think you're going to have to look at most clearly the permanent signs that are on premise, but to see if there are any opportunities to tweak your off-premise signs. And I know that that's related, at least I think, with federally funded highways, there are even some federal regulations as to billboards because of even if it's off-premise, billboard doesn't have to be huge. It can just be a small off-premise. So I think there are some regulations there, but it might be an opportunity to relook at that, and it may be something that may fit other areas.
We looked at the off-site signs this time last year. So we amended the ordinance. So if businesses who had that concern, they should look at that new change because it really relaxed it enough to. Older businesses didn't have the advantage like Hollywood Town Center where there's a big sign that's advertising all these different shops. Or Rio Hill Shopping Center. Some of the smaller businesses can actually come together and try to do that. So that's something that the businesses should look at.
And that's what we were looking at. We just had some staff kicking around looking at some pictures that would be it would be out of the right of way, so a private sign on private property, but it would be directional for several businesses. So kind of like an entranceway sign that could list a few businesses on there with arrows or whatever else, but technically it would be an off-premise sign.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's part of what we're taking to the board.
Okay. Well, let's get into the signing discussion now. We've got about 45 minutes left. This, I believe, is the next slide. I believe is one of the biggest opportunities, present opportunities we have to positively continue to positively influence how the Rio grade separated intersection could be delivered. I mean, we've talked at every meeting about traffic in local lanes and access to businesses. And it is true, as Mark said, there are certain requirements and regulations that VDOT has to live with. But I'm all about pushing the envelope on those requirements and regulations. And if we can come up with some ideas that are different, that help differentiate traffic in the local lanes versus the through lanes, I'm all for that. I think this idea that we talked about early on about maybe branding quadrants is still pretty cool, and one that I keep thinking about. But there are a lot of ideas. We're going to look mostly at things we flipped through real fast last time because we ran out of time, and then some new things as well. We're going to look at a series of things that could, these are just examples of things that could be used, not by the businesses Mark's talking about, but placed by VDOT to help direct traffic to businesses or to detours during construction. So these are temporary things. We're going to look at this business entrance inventory that VDOT has put together. It's been updated a little bit. We're going to look at some an idea of how signing could work for the 103 days, where we know we have a basically static situation with the detour. And then we'll look at some work zone temporary signs examples. We have Nathan here that can help us out. So, Stephen?
Phil, if I
Yes.
could real quick.
Yes.
I'll look at Chuck because he's easier. But do you all have any sense that if there's any concern of any competition within this area that will be a problem when we talk about signage? Like one business in the area competing with the other, and somehow some unfair advantage will emerge out of this?
I don't have any concept of that yet.
If y'all can try to let us know that, if that starts emerging, because we may be providing an unfair advantage to one business versus another who's just outside of this corridor or outside of this area. That just occurred to me that could happen.
I know that anybody that is asked if they can get more signage will say yes, I can tell you that. And if you want to extend it to Hilton Heights Road and beyond, they'll all say yes, so.
It's a delicate balance.
Let me try to answer this a little bit. Later on, we're going to get to the signs that I had drawn up originally and that got prettied up a little bit and probably need a little bit extra work. And I just threw in some business in there, names, just to get an idea, to get started. That essentially, the reason why they're there is because these businesses have been somewhat disadvantaged by the new pattern of the traffic. So nobody can say, oh, you have a sign out there that says how to get to Hardee's. And I say, yeah, but the reason why is we have to show you how you get to Hardee's, because otherwise you wouldn't know anymore.
Well, that's not necessarily where I was going. It was more of, we were, I'm talking.
About competition.
Well, during construction is where I was more focused on. I just want to make sure that we're not creating any additional unrest among the businesses.
Well, I think if they're treated equally,
that was my main.
And as was said before, should Pantops have a project of this nature, they were going to be treated the same way.
There's a couple of things that before we look at pictures, I thought it was important for you all to know that these are requirements that will be part of the contract. That during construction, residential community entrances must be maintained at all times. At all times. Private entrances must be maintained at all times. All business entrances must be maintained and open during all business hours. So this is through construction. Drainage must be maintained. In other words, you can't just leave your entrance open, but create a big pond of water in front of your entrances. So drainage must be maintained. And all entrances, connections must be asphalt, not gravel, not aggregate, and not dirt. So VDOT has put some requirements into the contract that the long and short of it say, hey, if you got an entrance, it needs to stay an entrance, and it needs to be a paved. entrance at all times. Now, the contractor's going to have to figure out how to make all of that work. But these will be contract requirements, not nice to do's, but contract requirements, which means there are consequences for not doing it. And I think Henry made a point that the focus right now is on the businesses whose normal traffic patterns will be disrupted particularly during the 103, and particularly during the 103 days. But these 5 provisions are in play throughout construction. These provisions are in the package for all the projects, right?
Yes, they are included in the request for proposals.
Yeah, in the request for proposals for the design build projects. But the next slide, and you all may want some bigger sheets of some of these, and if you do, I'll make sure we get them to you. But this, and Nathan, jump in if we go astray here, because I know this isn't easy. Are we still having problems with the streaming? If we're having problems, I'm not sure anybody can hear me say we're having problems. But can we put a note up on the website or something if there are problems? Is there a way to do that? Have we lost it?
No, it's back up.
It's back up, okay. If it's back up and we're having problems, I apologize, but we're having problems. The presentation is on the website under panels and meetings. February 5th, you'll see the agenda and the presentation. This is an inventory of entrances.
I'm sorry, that's kind of like telling, if you have email problems, send an email to, or if you have an internet problem,
I remember in high school, every morning, our principal, Hubert Jackson, used to blow into the microphone and say, if you cannot hear this message, please advise the office. And I, for 3 years, I always thought, what does he think he's saying? So nobody ever advised the office, of course. But this is an inventory of a map that I think Nathan and his team have been using just to capture businesses and numbers of businesses that are accessed from certain entrances. So kind of just a key piece of information that is helping Nathan in his planning effort as he looks at different signing issues. This is kind of helping get at the issue of, well, who is impacted here? What businesses are going to be affected? So that's an important piece of information.
If I could add, Philip, this slide kind of helps add to the importance and, kind of lays the groundwork of the information, but it also kind of sets the challenge. It shows just how many businesses we have that we still want to be able to make sure people can find. So it kind of presents the importance and the challenge of the task, that how do we sign for all these businesses, and keep it reasonable without, obviously, you'll see there's well over 100 without having well over 100 signs. So
well, yeah.
And that's why we're having this discussion,
Yeah.
because we want to find good solutions to that.
Okay. Again, these are just some examples. We looked at these briefly. These are some examples of temporary signs. They would be, always mess up colors. The orange is the background.
That's right.
There would be a background of orange with black lettering. These are just some examples. Last meeting, we had a lot of other gobbledygook on these plan sheets, and Dave went out yesterday and kind of cut out the stuff we don't need to see, and just so we can focus on the sign. Go ahead to the next one. This is just another sign where there might be closures, sign for local traffic only. This, I think, starts to get more at maybe the issue at hand, and our examples, again, it would be the orange and black, that this particular one, you know, says, hey, there's a business open to the right here. This is how you get to the Rite Aid. So this is an example of types of signs that could be, if you think of some of those entrances that have more than one business being accessed from that entrance, a sign like this may need to list 2 or 3 businesses potentially. Or like this one, there's 3 businesses. An example of where one entrance says, hey, businesses are open, and these are the businesses, and this is the entrance you take to get to. This is one that is in color. I think we saw this one last time, and this is an example of a sign that could be, go ahead, that could be at the Wendy's or at the Hardee's, not showing favoritism to the Wendy's here. That could have been, you know, Nate just picked this out here from his inventory map and said, okay, this is an example of something that could be southbound on Route 29 during construction. The business entrance has to stay open, so it's going to be open. It's going to be paved. There's not going to be water in front of it. And we could have a sign, a temporary construction sign that says, if you're looking for a Frosty, this is where to get it. Go ahead. This has got a lot of information on it. And we've gone back and forth with Nate several times, because there is some judgment here that we can apply. This is just an example of what a signing program for the 103 days could begin to look like. So now Rio is closed to cross traffic. There's no left turns permitted from Rio to 29 or 29 to Rio. The bad news is it's 103 days. You know, the good news is it's not longer, and it's static. This is a period of time where this detour plan, this situation, will remain the same, which frankly is an advantage for us, as opposed to a rolling 260 days where things are changing every 2 weeks. So Nathan and his folks, and Dave and me and others, have started to look at this a bit and trying to just get some ideas of where some signs might be. And I know this is hard to read on a big screen, but just take this first block for a minute, that says A. And the key for that A is right there on Rio Road East, westbound. So if you're driving up Rio Road during this 103-day period, you would see a sign that says, hey, whether you're going to 29 North or 29 South, you need to take a right up here. You need to take a right. So, and you see signs like that that say east or west, take a right. That's not necessary, that's not new on signing systems. So let's just follow that through a bit, keep me from getting lost. So you're driving and it says, okay, regardless of where you're going on north or south on 29, you need to take a right up here. So you take a right and you get to, Nathan, where's B? Does that say B?
Yeah, that's B.
Is that B? Yep. But where is B down here?
To the left there. They go in alpha.
Is that B? Okay.
Yep.
All right. So when you get to B, now this would say, well, if you're going to 29 South, or if you're going to 29 South or Rio Road West, you need to make a U-turn ahead. You need to make a U-turn ahead. And then you would have your signs for, yes?
I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
The only thing that confuses me a little bit is C2 and C, which seem to be past Myers Drive, where there's going to be the temporary traffic light.
You're going to make a U-turn at Woodbrook Road.
So you have to go to Woodbrook. You cannot use Myers Drive to make the U-turn to go southbound.
You're already past Myers Drive.
Well, that's the point.
Well, we can move the location. Can you make the U at Myers?
You can make the U-turn at Myers or Woodbrook.
Or Woodbrook.
Yeah, the way it's implied right here, and this is just maybe a matter of adding some signs, you have to go to Woodbrook, just by the paper, okay? Not
Yeah,
there.
well, these are all just, remember, these are just concepts at this stage.
Yeah, I'm just making
Yeah,
a point.
right.
Somebody wants to perfect
Right.
this.
And just to stress that point, this is just kind of to kind of get the conversation going, to show
Okay.
what this could look like. Obviously, this being a design-build contract, the ultimate plan will come from the design builder, but we want to have a good starting point of envisioning, kind of like we did obviously we won't do a whole rendering of the signs, but to get that going. And also the key point in this slide too is to remember all these signs have to integrate with the business signs too. So these signs are integral to how we sign for the businesses, because we have to, something as part of this is to keep from information overload to drivers. So how do we make them work together, in terms of what we want to sign versus.
To put this in context, it would be, let's tell somebody on Rio Road East, driving west, that you have to take a right, regardless of whether you're on 29 north or south. And then let's give the driver a new piece of information, that if you want to go to 29 south or Rio Road West, you need to make a U-turn at the right spot.
It's sequential.
Yeah,
The other thing
it's
is,
sequential.
Right now, just what the paper says, not exactly what the
Yeah, no, I got
you. You go into Woodbrook, you don't make that turn
I
on
got you.
Myers Drive when you.
So it could be in that
Moving.
situation that one of these banks would move back
Or both.
before Myers. Well, you probably still want one. You still want one up for Woodbrook or other traffic that might be coming out on the
Good
21.
point. Good point.
Yeah, so you might need to add one, or maybe to
You're
pull
gonna
it
have
back.
C3 and
Those might need a C3, exactly. Yeah, Eddie?
So Phil, so if, say for example, I'm coming Ryle Road and I'm coming down, I want to go 29.
Are you Rye Road this way?
Yeah, Ryle Road.
Okay, yeah.
And I want to go 29 south and I'm coming down to the light, okay, so I got to cross over right there, right? Now, if I want to go 29 south, and I'm driving a 53-foot tractor trailer, have y'all set lights back far enough for that tractor trailer to make his U-turn to come back down?
That, Dave, what do we believe is going to be the turning radius for the U-turns?
Well, that's going to have to be worked out in final design, but what we've got.
Because that's a good question.
We've got some options. And for instance, if you're driving a tractor trailer with total length of 53 feet, maybe it's a better idea to turn on to Woodbrook, go up to Berkmar, turn there, come back to Rio, and then make a right turn on the 29 south, depending on where you're going.
C2 shows no trucks.
Well, we've talked about that. And it would say no trucks if a truck could not make that U-turn. If a truck could make the U-turn, that wouldn't be there. But that's part of what we still need to work out, Eddie. It might be that for a truck of a certain size.
Well, the sign would probably say lengthwise what truck can make a turn, like a 26.
And I mean, the truck drivers of the larger trucks, as you know, are kind of familiar with these signs, and it may send them to Hilton Heights or to Woodbrook, to Berkmar, and back to Rio, where you could then go. Well, you could either stay on Berkmar and come here, right, or here.
Pardon my not knowing the details of the maintenance traffic plan. How about using Hillsdale? Is that not going to be an
Well,
option for?
You know,
for 29
I think
South?
VDOT wants to be a little careful where they send
Because
traffic.
Hillsdale is more basically retirement communities down there.
Exactly.
Our Lady of Peace and Jabo and all down that area, so that wouldn't be a good idea to send trucks down
Yeah.
through there with a lot of the older people driving, through there.
And we talked about the development of specific truck detour routes. We haven't shown them here.
Right.
This is the first approach at a global look at signing, but we will need to identify specific truck detour routes if they can't make a specific turn. And that would all be modeled using a software called AutoTurn. We can actually take a specific size truck and run it through a movement to see if it functions or not based on the amount of room you have.
In the last 24 hours, we probably traded about 3 or 4 versions of this back and forth together because we've been doing just the same thing that you're doing, Eddie, is saying, well, and Henry, well, gee, wait a minute, we don't want this here, or we need to do that there. The first version of this, we didn't have anything down here at Berkmar, and we said, well, hang on, we're going to have some signs down here at Berkmar because we're putting that temporary crossing in for people to use it. And if you're at this part of 29 traveling north, and you want to get to Ryle Road West, we don't want somebody to have to go all the way up and make a U-turn. We want them to use Berkmar and get to Ryle Road West.
Because also with people, maybe truck drivers and people traveling through with the GPS, with the traffic pattern and change, that's going to throw people way out of whack too.
We got a plan for that. We're going to be working with Google Maps. We talked about this briefly last week. Google Maps, Apple Maps. I don't always forget the others. OpenStreet and FHWA maintain databases that feed the Waves and Google and all the different apps. All of those different direction apps kind of pull from one of these 4 main databases. And again, the advantage of the static period here is we're going to be able to work with them early and say, come May the 23rd, 2016, things change here. And those some more than others of those 4, well, Google, Apple, and OpenStreet get a lot of their feedback, as you know, from people who are actually traveling. But working with VDOT, we will have the base plan in place, so when you do your click on Google and you're anywhere here and you want to get to Merchant's Tire, it's not going to tell you to go straight on Rio Road. It will route you around the most efficient way of getting there. That's going to be real important, not only for people that are local people, but for people who are traveling through or from out of town or visiting, or a parent, well, it's summertime, but still a parent coming to see your kid, whatever it might be. So we're going to have to be sharp on that item. What I'd like to ask you to do over the next couple of weeks is look at some of this and record some of the questions like Eddie had on what about trucks, Henry had about, well, wait a minute, maybe you need to do this here, or maybe you need to add more. And remember what Nathan said is that this doesn't have the individual signs on it yet that are more focused at businesses and entrances. So Nathan, do you know how many entrances and businesses you catalog? Round numbers, which means you can make it up.
Over 100 businesses, and it's somewhere between 25 and 35 entrances.
So 25 to 35 entrances for 100 different businesses would be signed here some way, in addition to all of these more, I guess, broader directional
In the business for Henry, he should get in the sign shop.
Henry should be in the sign business.
I'm going to be his assistant.
So, I mean, this is, and this is just the temporary stuff that we've been talking about, but this is important stuff for the businesses, I think. And without infringing on any business's opinion regarding whether or not RIO should be done, it would be great to get as much input as possible from the businesses about how this temporary signing could work. You know, I've envisioned maybe a graphic, a map, or a brochure that's a little more, I don't want to use the word cartoony, but not engineering or not precise, that just had this intersection and had the southeast quadrant, a northeast quadrant, northwest quadrant, and a southwest quadrant, and a set of directions that said, here's how you get to these quadrants for 103 days. And maybe on the back, you list every business that's in these quadrants. And, you know, one hand, you could say, well, businesses ought to do that for themselves and maybe contribute to the cost of it. On the other hand, you could say that, hey, this is part of the maintenance of traffic plan, is to have something like this that these businesses, you know, Larry Howard could have in his guitar store, that you could give to customers that say, for 103 days, I'm in the southwest quadrant, here's how you get to the southwest quadrant, from the north, from the south, from the east, or from the west. We're going to continue to explore some of these ideas with the county staff and with VDOT. We've got a public information budget. We want to put it to good use. So any thoughts that you have, or any thoughts that you can get from any of your colleagues about this issue of signing are most welcome. I think we've got a couple more weeks. We can talk about this and consider it, but when the design builder gets their notice to proceed, I want to be able to walk in with a set of ideas that we want them to start considering right from the get-go.
Philip, just to pick up and reiterate something there, and there's a couple more slides here that show some of the kind of district concepts and those.
Right.
And that's what we want to hear from you guys, because if you guys have ideas, you know, that gets us working on, okay, well, what can we do as far as that goes? What are our options? And sometimes it may be, the answer is maybe we can't. Like Philip said, we certainly want to press the envelope, and I'm hoping at the next meeting, keep in mind some of the programs we talked about, the TODS program, which is, you know, a section of the IDSP, those type of things. Keep those in mind. Hopefully we'll have some examples next go around. We're working with our central office folks on those to have some more presentation. But think about, you know, what would you want to see? What do you think would be beneficial, so that those are things that we can, you know, either research further or look to integrate. Yeah. That's what we want to hear, because we don't want to, you know, go down one track and you guys say, well, that wasn't what we were thinking at all, and we don't think it would be helpful, and then we did all that work. So if it's things that you guys think would be beneficial, you as business owners who live and breathe this type of thing, you know, and then that gets us going in the right direction as far as what we're looking to develop further. So
I will take it to the business group too, but it seems like to me, you want to look for a theme that's going to be saying we're all open.
Absolutely.
And looking back at some of the other signs, if you're looking at individual signs that says Wendy's open, then you may be assuming that means somebody may be closed. I think the big theme is nobody's closed. We're all open. This is just how you get to us.
I agree with you with respect to that particular sign. I saw it and say, yes, I can see where this has been used. I've seen them somewhere else where there was a particular situation. Here we have a different situation, and when you get down to some of the signs that I try to sketch out, that Phil then did very quickly, and now I have to argue with him about changing it a little bit.
We won't argue.
You'll see that, no, I don't think we want individual signs when this is open. It's an illustration, I don't think it applies here.
Well, that's important,
I think
because again,
yes.
we don't want to be developing those signs.
You got a
I think
copy of
those
this?
are- I do. So, we don't want to be,
Yeah.
each individual, if you
Right.
feel that, create that impression. then
Well,
certainly
that-
You probably won't need those.
We want-
This is why, and I know I'm stuck on it admittedly, I like the idea of focusing on the quadrants, because they're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
The maintenance of traffic plan for those 103 days is static, and we ought to be telling people that here are the businesses, and they're all open, all their entrances are open, because you can't close them, and this is how you get to them.
That's a good point that you made before about the entrances always being paved.
Yeah.
And those signs, when these open is when you have gravel there. People don't know you're open,
Or,
okay?
as he said, mud and water.
Yeah, mud and water is even better, you know?
Yeah.
You have to tell people you're open because they're not sure. But if you have it paved all the time and you don't have
Yes.
water ponding, you don't need those individual signs. I'm sure you don't need them. But you still need to let people know how to get where you want to go.
Karen? Just hang on a minute.
No problem.
Karen?
I was just saying, touch on what you, I think, mentioned a couple of things about, one, the time of year that this will be occurring, people visiting the kids. I know that, I'm sure everybody knows, at UVA, there's tons of college visits for prospective students happening at that time of year.
Yes.
There's lots of sports camps going
Mhm.
on. We get tons of tour buses at the mall because they've come to Monticello or just
Yeah.
to the sites. So if there's any way with our communications plan, if, like you said, a cartoony, I kind of know what you mean. Like
Yeah, you know what I
but
mean, yeah.
not-
Like a mall brochure, where
Marketing.
yeah, yeah.
Even if it's not a handheld, which producing those would be so costly, but however, even if it's just a one static that could be posted at the UVA Welcome Center, that could be posted at the airport, that could be, I don't know if Monticello allows that, could be posted even in hotels and whatnot, so that people.
Could they be on information signs at Fashion Square Mall
Yeah, I
and
mean,
Apple Mall?
yeah, everywhere around,
Yeah.
but not necessarily just in there.
Right,
People are
exactly,
coming
exactly.
at that time of year to visit
Exactly.
other parts of the area, but
Yeah.
not traveling through here, and so
Yeah.
they'll know not to avoid.
Yeah. Okay, Eddie?
The other question I think was an issue that was brought up. What plans does VDOT have in store for as far as doing construction anyway, doing emergency vehicle?
Emergency vehicles, and I'll let Dave or Lou comment on this further. The EMS center, we've been working with them, for months, and they will have a preemption at this Berkmar signal, which means if emergency services needs to get out from their station to 29, they will be able to preempt that signal, stop all traffic, so they can get through. Now, Lou, have you been working with the EMS more, or has it been Dave or Al? I know we've had regular meetings with those.
Yeah, that's one of our subcommittees.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
community subcommittee, I'm on that along with EMS.
Miller, who has been here at several of our meetings, is plugged tight into that group.
They're even considering, at least for fire, once it gets a little bit more finalized, of creating a temporary staging position on the east side of 29.
Right.
PVCC or somewhere, not PVCC, but
K-Tech.
K-Tech. So that just in case there's a concern, they may man some trucks on that side of the highway through the construction.
But they will be able to preempt that signal and take precedence over any access there. Okay, let's look at, these are some repeats. Go ahead, Stephen. That was temporary. This is more terms of thinking longer term, permanent signing, the district concept, the district quadrant concept, some specific service signs, the TODs, which we talked about, the tourist-oriented directional signing, which is kind of a mini local logo signing is what it amounts to, as well as Henry was kind enough to accept a homework assignment based on some sketches that he gave me at the end of our last meeting. This is Henry's work, but some stuff that we just drew it up based on what Henry turned in and I shared with you all. Go ahead. These are some ideas of the community wayfinding. You could replace community with quadrant. You could replace community with district or whatever you want to do in terms of wayfinding guide signs. Hamilton could be blue. It could be northeast. It could be any designation of a quadrant or whatever you might want it to be with specific names on it.
I think the important part of this slide is the two on the bottom, because that was where
Yeah.
we were kind of focusing on the
Yeah.
district concept of if we wanted to pursue that, and this slide is straight out of the MUTCD, the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, so it shows that it's a very workable concept to use some existing allowable signing that we wouldn't even really have to bend the rules. Now, it might be something where we need some community involvement because there would have to be some defined areas for the district, and there would have to be some, if you're going to name them or however you're going to do it, but to show that this concept is very real and very plausible. So we just wanted to kind of demonstrate that was
Seeing this and considering what I started doing, I can see where it says Renwick District, it says quadrants, and then it says southeast, southwest, whatever.
Yeah.
And it establishes the colors for the signs.
Yeah.
Right.
And the signs are colored consistently with what is indicated here.
And it's good because that goes back to, one of the things I made on the first point where we have all these businesses, so we kind of need some way to kind of, for lack of a better way, condense it down to get people to 30 or 40 and communicate that very quickly without a sign that's 30, 40 foot tall, with 30, 40 names.
So
Because nobody's going to be able to find their specific business.
Pardon
Is
me?
that one of the colors you're looking at for that sign? That was just an example.
That's just an example.
Yeah, I
That's just
understand.
that's a
Maybe.
that's a very generic, just here's how it could look. Certainly the district names could be different, the colors could be different. There's nothing that locks you in there, just
To establish a reference of color coding for the different, in our case, quadrants.
Right.
Yes.
Right. And then when you get into that quadrant, you might have more specific signing to specific entrances or
Well,
businesses.
I don't know if it's
That's
next.
where it gets a little bit murkier. Because,
Oh, it does.
because
Yeah.
I'm trying to tell you ahead of time what businesses and what
Sure. But I can see what your concept,
I can,
conceptually, working together with
I
something.
can blend this into this.
Yeah.
I don't know if
Okay.
we'll keep the Charlotte sign.
I think we can, we
The next sign, or
might have zinged that one, the one that had the big yellow stripe through it.
I'm not sure. But
Think
that
I
was-
zinged that
And
one.
it was in the last.
Yeah.
last-
Go to the
last
next slide.
meeting.
No, I did not. The answer
But
is
that
no.
was just, if you remember, but
Right.
just the city of Charlotte, North Carolina, is
Right.
a very real concept. that
Go
they
back
utilize today.
Go back.
You know,
Based on this concept.
Right, exactly. So just
The last time we saw a sign right off of Google Maps, it was on the side of the road, and it had one more, it had 4 on it, that was a district quadrant sign.
Just to show you that it can work, and there's places you
Yeah.
can today very effectively.
The next is one we looked at last time, and these are just the templates from the larger interstate logo signing, aren't they?
Yep, just to
Nathan.
demonstrate, just to make sure that everybody understands what the logo.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily, in my mind, see this as a gas, food, and lodging kind of
Not exactly.
deal at all. But those are just, again, examples. And then, oh yeah, we did keep this one, which is just out there on Rye Road East now. It's a single pod sign for Jimmy John's.
Okay, here I have a question, kind of thinking that the next one is the set of signs that I drew up. Can that sign in this case, it would be multiple businesses kind of stacked up. Can that be cantilevered and projected out like over the sidewalk or close to the sidewalk?
Well, you run into, getting over the sidewalk is usually messes with the Americans with Disabilities Act.
No, high enough, obviously.
But yeah, and that's some of the things where I'm hoping next time I can speak a little bit more to what our options with this program is and what they might allow, because right now there's certain regulations as far as how many can be on certain signs, and so they're looking at what options for kind of extending those rules and different things that can happen as far as that goes. So.
Because what I envisioned is these signs here to be cantilevered out a certain amount so that they're more visible. Because these things kind of get lost in the bushes, sometimes literally.
Right. And that's where we're trying to find that happy medium. Joel mentioned last time there's one overhead sign, I believe, planned in each direction, and so I know that the area is very sensitive to the appearance, and if we get these too huge of signs, with overhead, do we feel like an interstate expressway at that point? So we're trying to figure out where the right way to go is there.
Okay. Henry sent us a hand sketch that I shared with you, and really appreciated Henry doing it in a very timely manner. Turned his homework in early. And then I just asked Dave to have somebody draft it up a bit. And Henry, the only thing we changed on it was you had Rio East on the west.
Oh, okay.
I know that was just a test to see if we would catch it.
I admit to my partial dyslexia.
But if you would speak to your idea a bit here, I would appreciate it.
Yeah.
Henry, I'm sorry, I gotta leave. It's unfortunate, I'll have to look at
Just
the
one, we
podcast.
get to
I know,
the next part.
I'm so sorry. It's a life of being busy.
Okay,
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead.
I will catch it later.
Okay.
I'm sure.
On the top sign, the way I drew it up, and say this is a classical case of the engineer draws something up and the draftsman does something different, or misses half the point, but that's okay. They did it quickly, I know.
We did not mean to misrepresent anything you drew.
It's okay. Well, on my drawing, I have a vertical line going between where it says true lanes and business lanes, and in my mind also would have different background colors, probably green on the true lanes and yellow, somewhat emulating the sign that is on 29 now going towards the 250 bypass, where you have yellow and green.
So you would have some differentiation here.
I would keep working on this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then on the other signs where it says Detour Berkmer, I drew that like essentially an add-on sign that you have during construction.
I wanted to ask you about that.
Yeah.
So okay.
And then when you finish with the construction, you take it off.
Okay.
Because now the turn is on the intersection. It's no longer on Berkmer. But temporary, that's why I drew it in like dash and a separate panel that would disappear later on.
And this is southbound on 29.
Right.
Here. Okay.
And if we're going to add one of those introductory signs that introduces the colors, these things would be in different colors, each one of them. And then also, in this particular case, the fund for the business seems to be very small. Excuse me. Seems to be very small, and it would have to be scaled up a little bit again. As a matter of fact, I try to use the same font except lowercase for the business and uppercase for the top indications like the.
Well, there are specifications for the sizes as we saw in the other ones. The point of the specifications is to make sure you can read what's on the sign.
Yeah,
so
it wouldn't pass muster with VDOT either. So that's essentially the idea, and this is the best I could come up with so far. And when it comes to picking the individual businesses and the order, again, I took a stab at it and kind of.
Just examples.
Yeah. There could be some arguments. Why do I have some people first and somebody last, and stuff like that. But it's generally in order of appearance. What's going to be there first?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Now, the question is, so some of them be replaced by others or whatever. I thought it would be the business that are already most visible right now, so that you kind of know, if I want to go to Taco Bell, people have seen it, so they know where it is. And it may even be a reference for other businesses, just because that particular business is very visible. And they know, I want to go to the store that's next to Taco Bell. So I would be glad to try to...
But your basic thought was to let traffic know in advance, this is the through lane, this is the local lanes, or the business, whatever we choose to call it, and then to have a series of signs that could possibly work with some quadrant branding to direct traffic to those quadrants.
Yeah, it is quadrant branded from northeast, southeast,
Yeah,
southwest.
Right.
And they could be in those colors that would be shown up front.
Yeah.
And I also figured, in my own mind, I went back and forth a little bit, what should be the sequence, and which one should be first, second, third. And it occurred to me that the ones that have to make the U-turn need to know about that first.
Oh, okay.
You really need to know.
Okay.
Yeah, U-turn. The ones that make the left turn second. Okay. The ones that go straight, I left those for last because I figured, well, you're going straight. You don't need advance warning so much as the people making the turn. And what was left out in here is that I also showed them the left turns on Rio West and Rio East was labeled. I guess they got lost in translation, like a separate panel.
Oh, okay.
It was left out.
Okay.
Maybe because somebody thought it wasn't a good idea, or maybe it just got missed by whoever did the graphic work.
Okay.
And that's all I have to say.
All right. Any thoughts or questions of Henry?
I missed something about they could be converted to permanent signs.
These are permanent signs in my view.
I think what
The only
Henry
thing that is
did,
is
John,
detour.
I think what Henry did was he envisioned this as being sort of a bolt-on to the sign during construction, that if you removed, you would be left with this sign. Because
It's your permanent sign.
Yeah.
Why do two set of signs?
Well, you could have detour Myers Drive, and then if you took it off, it could read Myers Drive.
No, because
Myers Drive will close.
No, because now you're making your turn on Rio. This is leading to Rio.
Right.
Okay, on the arrow on there, at the same time you've got detour Myers Drive, because that would be confusing.
Well, you could leave it off. That's true. You could just put it that way. The only thing is, obviously, you're not going to make that U-turn. You're going towards Rio. When you get to Rio, you're not going to make the U-turn.
Right, that's why I think the arrow might confuse you.
I think the engineers can do this when it comes time to doing this.
Yeah,
We don't need to write it.
We can get the concept down. We can get the...
You see, in my view, the detour would be one of those signs, construction signs, orange with background with black letters. You just tell people you're going to make it the U-turn, but it's down the road. It's at Myers Drive, because that's sign 4. That's the first one you see after 29th place. Okay.
But if we pull back up just a minute to the concept as I understood it and looking at what you sent me on Monday was a method of signing that could work during construction as well as after construction.
Exactly.
Together with some sort of branding of the quadrants,
That's
whether
okay.
it's colors, names.
Yeah.
And your idea was that in addition just to the general direction in the quadrant, we would list some businesses,
Yeah,
some business names.
right.
Yeah.
The ones that kind of stand out currently, so that people will have a good reference. Because otherwise, well, quadrant, southwest, some people have trouble with
Yeah.
directions and stuff, so. Business could later refer to, I'm in the southwest quadrant, but early on, they need to know where they're going,
Yeah.
and even later.
Yeah.
So,
I'm just noticing it's after 4. I want to be respectful of your time. We can take as much time as we want. But this is exactly what I hope we would do, is generate some ideas that, as Chuck said, we can let Nathan and his guys worry about the lettering and the arrows and some of that
You said
stuff.
this is the concept.
But to get concepts from the viewpoint of business people who know the other business people in the area and help feed that to Nathan and his group so that when the design builder does start work with their designers, this is fed to them from the beginning.
right.
Kind of like we did with the architectural treatments. Rather than just wait and see what people come up with, let's feed some input into it early.
And if they have something better, so be it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But what we're trying to not have is anywhere, everywhere, USA, but something that would make sense in the context of this intersection.
Something occurred to me right now.
Yeah.
Which they're different in many ways in their design and so on. But the city of Charlottesville has signs all over now with listing business and locations. You know what signs I'm talking about? They've sprouted up all over town. Too bad the mayor has left.
Are these new? Is this something new?
They're relatively new in the sense they sprouted up in the last 3 years or so.
Okay.
And it started with a few and they keep growing. You know what I mean? On the backside it shows a dogwood flower.
Oh.
They're kind of greenish and they're not exactly the same thing, but they also have like slats so that you can replace the businesses or the landmarks that they show. I don't know if you're aware of that. Have you seen them?
I've seen some around the county office building, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a wayfinding sign system.
That's what it's called? Okay.
What's it called?
It's a wayfinder
Wayfinder
system,
sign.
yeah.
Yeah,
They
okay.
have all different, it takes different source, some are different sizes, some are on the downtown mall, directing
Okay.
you to like historic districts, some are going up towards where schools are. And then
Courthouse,
some are when you come
library.
into the entrance order, I guess,
Okay.
of the city, and it says, welcome to Charlottesville, so they have different designs, but it's.
Okay.
Yeah, and in a way, this is the same thing, just scaled up, so.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, I like your idea of having the directional signs, help people find the different quadrants. I appreciate all the work you've done. I do wonder if we start, the idea of listing specific businesses, I wonder if that opens a can of worms. I like the idea of having some landmarks, like Fashion Square Mall, for example, which houses many
The
businesses.
library is there too.
I just see there being
Albemarle High School is
a
there.
potential problem there where some businesses are saying, well, why can't we be on there? But I think the branding thing and the quadrant idea is a way to try to get at that.
Are you saying some business would not want to be on there?
No, I think some businesses.
You're gonna get 100 businesses with
Might
the
have
same, and you can't see 100 businesses on
No, you
6
can't.
signs.
You have a limit of 4 or 5, maybe 6.
But how do you determine which ones are limited?
Well, the way I did it is the ones that are the most recognizable now.
Well, you try telling the ones that aren't on it.
That's why mine needs to be there.
I know I'm stepping on thin ice. However, you know, a lot of business, rather than not being there at all, if I can tell my customers, you know, I'm next to Taco Bell, or people remember that that business is next to Taco Bell, they'll be happy that at least Taco Bell is called out. That way, because people are not going to remember all the quadrants and who is on which one and whatever. We really miss a lot. So what I try to do, right or wrong, is to put those that are the most visible, because a lot of others will work by reference.
Well, there's a couple ways you could approach that. I mean, you could do something similar to logo signing. You have to meet certain requirements, but you have to pay to be on the sign. And the sign only holds so many, and...
First come, first served.
Well, I think it's,
Or lottery.
I think it's distance. Is
Lottery.
I think it's distance, as I recall my signing.
You have to qualify for the.
You have to qualify, yeah.
For the blue signs, and
Yeah.
you cover the cost of the installation.
Right.
And then there's something that, there's only a certain amount of density that's allowed for those.
Yeah.
So many names per area, and then there's somehow how that's.
I think it's
Public policy or
distance.
something.
No, I'm pretty sure it's distance. It's
Well, that's
distance from the
That's the
interstate.
case, I happened to
But-
stumble on it because I went in the order of appearance.
Yeah, but I would kind of, just back to what Chuck said earlier, let's just kind of keep the concept in.
Yeah, we don't need to decide.
The concept in mind. You might be able to have businesses, they might be landmarks, they might be something else. And it's partially why I thought too of, and maybe it's not just during construction, but because there's going to be a change here, some kind of simple thing that you could either hold in your hand or look at or give to your customers that says, I'm Karen Weiner, I'm in the southeast quadrant, and here's how you get to me. You know, well, or Fashion Square Mall. Fashion Square Mall.
So, and, I mean, the temporary signage and the permanent signage, I guess, yeah, how those two, is the temporary signage going to be a part of what the permanent signage becomes, like the direction of things?
I think it could be, but not all of it, because you wouldn't want, I don't think you would want all of it, too. You know, I think we do have to, at the top, think, yeah, well, okay, we got during construction, but as you all have said, well, it's, the changes during construction are one thing, but that's 103 days. Forever is after that. And how are we going to have these signs work? You know, Karen, I don't know, this just ran through my head. Maybe your customers in the mall may have some ideas and thoughts.
I mean, stores.
Stores.
Right, I was thinking as we're talking about this, yeah, a focus group
Of some of your stores, I guess I think of them as our customers, but stores, and the same at Albemarle Square, the same in each quadrant, really, may have some ideas and thoughts, and if they do, it would be good to know what they are. So I don't have any new business. I don't have any new business. New business or wrap up? Henry?
Adjourn.
Morgan? Eddie?
Basically, as I said from day one, my opposition on the GSI still stands, so that's it.
One thing on the temporary signs, and I should have brought it up a little earlier, but I started thinking, we've put a lot of focus on how to get people to the businesses, but now we've got to talk about somewhere along the line about once they're trying to come out of the business, how do they know to get back to
where
they're trying to go?
Well, the businesses don't want them to get back. No, they're here.
Actually, they do, because, you want if you want repeat business, you want them to recognize there is a good way to get.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
What about with the handout you're talking about? Having like one side of it be to get to these areas,
Mhm.
and then on the back side would be how to get to 29 North, or how to get to Charlottesville on the backside, and then your customers, when they're in there, you hand them out.
There you go.
Yeah, that's a,
But he's right.
Yeah.
Tell them how to get out.
I think the answer to how do you get out is in that series of signs we saw first, when we had C1,
Yeah.
C2. Remember which one?
Yeah.
Well, I just thought about it because I realized, sometimes traveling around the country, and I pulled off in construction zones and got gas, and then I start to drive back out, and
you don't know where.
I don't have a clue how to get back on the highway.
Right.
Yeah, I think those signs, that series of signs we saw first is probably what, if enough of them are out there, will get you hopefully back where you're going.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, but that's a good thought. I'm gonna pursue this. For now, I'll use the term brochure. And I think that while paper is expensive, there's no question about that. I'm thinking if I'm one of these businesses, I want something I can see and hold in my hand, at least for a little bit, to see if it's going to add some value. And it needs to be something, and I say this in all seriousness and genuineness, once this thing is under construction, I know as a business person, businesses are going to want to tell people how to get to them, not that you can't. I mean, so to have something that says, this is how you get, and I'm just using names I've heard here, so I'm not picking, this is how you get to Jiffy Lube, is important. And I think partially what I'm hearing is, well, let's say that if Jiffy Lube was your first stop, but the little gym is your next stop, you want to know how to get from Jiffy Lube to the little gym, or to Monticello, or to downtown Charlottesville.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
One of the things we're trying to is helping the people who live in town
Yeah.
readjust.
Yeah.
And they know that the little gym is just a little bit past Taco Bell.
Yeah.
And the other reason, I'm trying to justify.
I think Henry has interest in Taco Bell.
One of the things too is the people that are most affected by these changes are the fast food, the gas people, and that's why I listed so many fast food and gas people. A, because they're very visible, and B, they'll be hurting the most with a reduction in traffic flow in front of their driveways. So that was the idea, I guess, behind why I picked those. They're recognizable, they're visible, people remember where they are.
Okay.
And they remember where other businesses are relative. If I want to go to the storage place behind the Hess,
Right.
I remember the Hess
Right.
station.
Okay.
I'm just glad you didn't put Lowe's on it.
Who are they? What did they do?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Never been in the store, have you?
Never.
I don't have any.
Anything else, Mark? Chuck?
No, thanks.
Okay. All right, thanks a lot, and we'll see you on February 22nd.